And away we go, episode 1187 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. It is the first day of the Washington Commanders practice week for their game against the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this Sunday night at 8:20. Yes, another primetime game for our team, the fourth of 5 scheduled primetime games for the Commanders in the NFL's 2025 regular season, in which they are a mere 3-5 off the 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. This also is the day after the end of the Matthew Wright era for the Commanders. So the team on Tuesday afternoon announced having release kicker Matthew Wright from the practice squad. He, in the loss at the Chiefs, served as the Commanders' kicker, this due to Matt Gay being inactive due to a back ailment, so presumably Matt Gay now is fine. But this Commander season is not so fine. Hello and welcome to this Wednesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. We on Tuesday afternoon also had the day after the game press conference of Commanders head coach Dan Quinn on what was a Tell the Truth Tuesday, with the Commanders having played on Monday. Coming up on the show, a lot of conversation about our team. Next segment, discussion of the state of the team season. The following segment, analysis of the offense, including Dan Quinn getting snippy regarding a question about quarterback Jayden Daniels, and a perhaps telling answer from Quinn on the struggles of the rushing offense. And the segment after that, analysis of the defense, including a breakdown of the changes that resulted in the defense in the loss at the Chiefs being better, though still not good. Also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, and James Madison football. As remember, this is the podcast that follows Washington, D.C. area sports so that you don't have to. You have enough on your plate. Let us do the heavy lifting that is following D.C. area sports. A more comprehensive show about D.C. area sports you will not find. You could look, but you won't find one. The Caps, they on Tuesday night lost at the Dallas Stars 1-0 despite another good game for goaltender Logan Thompson. He stopped 18 of the 19 shots on goal that he faced. The Wizards, they on Tuesday night blew a 19-point third quarter lead and a 17-point fourth quarter lead in a 139-134 overtime loss to the Philadelphia 76ers at Capital One Arena. And James Madison, it on Tuesday night won at Texas State 52-20. The Dukes have won 6 consecutive games. JMU for this season is 7-1 overall, including 5-0 in the Sun Belt Conference. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on the Commanders from Tony on X. Writes Tony, I let them give me hope this season, and that's on me, not them. Thank you for that, Tony. I had hope too. Great hope for this season. The season is not over, but yeah, the season is not looking so good right now. I am receiving calls to conduct Operation Loseout again. Operation Loseout, a successful mission that we conducted on this podcast during the Commanders' 2023 season, resulting in them getting the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, which, as you may recall, was perceived to be loaded at quarterback. And our team, with that number 2 overall pick, of course, took Jayden Daniels. There were people who were mad at me for doing Operation Loseout. I remember that. I got lectured to for doing Operation Loseout, but I was 100% right in doing Operation Loseout, and I know that many of you were on board with Operation Loseout, and Operation Loseout actually got this podcast some publicity via the Washington Post. Anyway, from RJD on X, writes RJD, commence Operation Loseout. Thank you for that, RJD. Email from Nate G. Writes Nate, hey Al, this one was tough to watch. I knew to keep the expectations low due to Jedi 5 being hurt, but I wasn't expecting the defense to tease us the way that the defense did. That wasn't fair. I want my money back. First 2 drives of the game result in 2 picks. Finally, not only did we see turnovers, but they were made by Marshawn Lattimore and Bobby Wagner, the 2 guys who the fans have been calling to be benched. And then the second half happened. Got 21 points, dropped on our head, and a rough-looking injury to Javon Kinlaw. Yet another big loss to the D-line. Mark my words, Al, unless something is done about this defensive line come January time, we'll be talking about Operation Loseout 2.0. Get the best first-round pick you can and trade down to get more than our current 2 picks inside of the top 100. To put it simply, I'm in panic mode. Hope you have a great day, and thank you for making my morning commute to work more enjoyable. Well, thank you very much for the email, Nate. I sure hope that we don't have to conduct Operation Loseout 2.0. I mean, the whole idea with this season was for it to be the opposite of a tank job. But yeah, we on this podcast always root for what is best for our team. So if it ends up that losing out this season is what is best for the Commanders, then I absolutely will root for them to lose out. I absolutely will conduct another Operation Lose Out. But we're not there yet. We're a lot closer than we ever thought we'd be, but we're not there yet. Email from Ryder on the Commanders potentially being sellers off their loss at the Chiefs. Writes Ryder, hey Al, more drops. The opening drive with Debo that resulted in an interception, the lane drop, and of course, the Zach Ertz drop. I know we were down 21 at the time, but it seems like Zach Ertz has a big drop every week. Looked like the zone defense was working too well, so logically Witt decided we should go to man in the second half. At one point, I saw Bobby Wagner one-on-one with Xavier Worthy. With the remaining schedule, making the playoffs is out of reach. Seems like a great time to load up on much-needed draft picks this coming trade deadline. I am curious who you think on this Commanders team could even be attractive to contenders. Thank you for the email, Ryder. So the 2025 NFL trade deadline is this Tuesday, November 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern. What I said on episode 1181 of this podcast is if the Commanders lose their next two games, so the game at the Chiefs and this upcoming game against the Seahawks, then general manager Adam Peters absolutely should be open to being an aggressive seller regarding the deadline. If the Commanders are 3-6 going into the trade deadline, then Peters absolutely should be open to being an aggressive seller regarding the deadline, because the team's realistic playoff hopes would have taken serious blows, already have taken serious blows, and the team is in need of more draft capital, and the team does have some intriguing trade chips. Quarterback Marcus Mariota, receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., tight end Zach Ertz, interior defensive lineman Daron Payne, edge defender Von Miller, linebacker Bobby Wagner. All are interesting and perhaps viable trade chips to varying degrees and could help to replenish the team's diminished draft capital. Email from Roger Gonzalez on the Commanders' loss at the Chiefs. Writes Roger, outcoached, outplayed, outclassed. The good old days. Thank you for that, Roger. Yes, the good old days. The loss at the Chiefs, reminiscent of so many Monday night losses for Washington over the years. Our team now is 8-25 all-time in regular season games on Monday Night Football. Yes, 8-25. 25 losses out of 33 games. Washington overall has been terrible on Monday Night Football, and so many of the losses have been blowout losses, and at home, by the way. But, you look at just the last 20 years, a 23-6 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers at FedEx Field on November 3rd, 2008, a 45-12 loss to the New York Giants at FedEx Field on December 21st, 2009, the swinging gate game, a 59-28 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles at FedEx Field on November 15th, 2010, the Monday Night Massacre, a 27-6 loss to the San Francisco 49ers at FedEx Field on November 25th, 2013, a 38-16 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers at FedEx Field on September 12th, 2016, a 43-19 loss at the New Orleans Saints on October 8th, 2018, and yes, now this 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on October 27th, 2025. Well, if you are a Commanders fan, it is good to have you with us, and make sure that you do check out bgobsession.com, an outstanding site for Commanders conversation. bgobsession.com, a good place right now for some Commanders therapy. The Sons of Washington forum on bgobsession.com is tremendous. BG Obsession, or BGO, has been going strong since 2009. No politics, just friendly and passionate discussion about the Commanders and more. Great contests, game day chats, and camaraderie. Both old school and new school fans are welcome. Visit and join BGO at bgobsession.com. bgobsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession. Hey, if you are listening to this podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can rate the podcast with a star rating. 5-star ratings are greatly appreciated. They help us out a lot. Thank you for doing them. The Washington Commanders' 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football concluded a stretch of 4 road games and 5 games for the Commanders. They, during that stretch, went 1-4. The team has lost 3 consecutive games, 4 of its last 5 games, and 5 of its last 7 games. And the Commanders are getting buried in the NFC NFC, if you just look at winning percentage in the NFL's 2025 regular season, the Commanders are 13th out of 16 teams in the NFC at 3-5, and the Commanders now are 3 games behind the 6-2 Philadelphia Eagles for first place in the NFC East. And remember when the Commanders were the only team in the NFC East with a positive point differential? That point differential now is at -11. 3 of the Commanders' next 4 games are at home. The team schedule for November is as follows. Home to the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football this Sunday night at 8:20. Home to the Detroit Lions on Sunday afternoon, November 9th at 4:25. The game against the Miami Dolphins in Spain on Sunday morning, November 16th at 9:30. A Week 12 bye. And then home to the Denver Broncos on Sunday Night Football on November 30th at 8:20. So a bunch of home games are coming up. But in this NFC, it is hard to see anything less than 10-7 making the playoffs, and even 10-7 may not be good enough. But let's stick with 10-7. The Commanders at 3-5 need to go at least 7-2 the rest of the regular season to get to 10-7. 7-2. How realistic? How doable is that? Don't answer that. On Tuesday's show, episode 1186, talked about how much I hate what this Commander season has become. So many things have gone wrong to where it's not even Halloween, and yet this more and more is feeling like a lost season. But I would offer 2 reasons to keep hope alive. Number 1, we are still not even halfway through the regular season. The Commanders have played 8 games and have 9 games left, so still a lot of football left to be played. Number 2, 7 of the Commanders' last 9 games in this regular season are NFC games, including 4 NFC East games. The team has played just 2 of its 6 division games, so plenty of opportunity to make hay remains. But will the hay be made? The team has been brutalized by injury. The team's defense is bad. The slate of opposing quarterbacks is brutal. The team is guilty of too many drops. The team's rushing offense is struggling. The team has had bad turnover luck. On and on we can go. We, on Tuesday afternoon, had the day after the game press conference of Commanders head coach Dan Quinn. The presser started around 3:15. This was a short day after the game press conference, lasted for less than 11 minutes. But we, during the presser, had this back and forth between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dan, with these 3 straight losses, what is the morale like right now inside your locker room, and how do you keep that morale positive through this?
Yeah, I think optimism is probably, maybe the better word than morale. And I wanted to find improvement. I wanted to find momentum, in spaces that could we create that. I felt there's some in some spots, Scott, I felt on the defensive side in the early parts of creating some takeaways. I felt that's the momentum that we're looking for. When you've been in these spots, man, you dig in together, and that's what you have to do. So I would say the optimism to know these are the things that we're going to work on to get better at. And if we do those, we know what the results will look like. So everybody's frustrated, obviously disappointed. Those are like natural reactions. I think the more important thing, Scott, is what are you going to do about it? And that's the work. And I saw that. I liked what last week's practice was like. We did a lot more good on good, and we'll continue to make those tweaks and adjustments as we need to. I know this is a short week, so it may not be as much, but I think I said a week or so ago, over the next 4 weeks, those are going to be some markers that I'm looking to see us improve upon. But you dig in, man, and you do it together. This is a good group of guys. So, that part, they're mad, upset, all those emotions you would think. But, man, you also got to, go out on the field, and you got to put the work in, and what's the specific thing this has to happen.
And I was reading some of the post-game quotes last night. I think Zach Ertz said, the clock is ticking. Can you kind of explain that from your perspective of nearing the halfway point of the regular season of hey, you got to get some urgency, you got to get some wins now because, you don't want to get too big of a hole right now. Yeah,
I think what he's saying, a lot of NFC games be played, but, man, you have to take advantage of it, Scott. That is absolutely where it is. And so that leads us right into this week, in terms of a matchup to go get it. But clock ticking, urgency, all the same. I would agree with him, and his teammates do too. So, it's like I said, it's a good group. We want to get it right, and when you miss the mark, that's when it's hardest. But collectively, man, we got to nail it collectively.
Yeah, the Commanders so need a win right now. It feels like the team has not won in forever. The last win was the 27-10 win at the Los Angeles Chargers on October 5th, in a game in which the Commanders overcame a 10-0 second quarter deficit and scored 27 unanswered points. I tell you what else stings. Seeing what happened on Sunday with the two teams who handed the Commanders their first two losses of this three-game losing streak, the Chicago Bears and Dallas Cowboys. The Bears fell to 4-3 with a 30-16 loss at the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday afternoon. The Cowboys fell to 3-4-1 with a 44-24 loss at the Denver Broncos on Sunday. The Bears and Cowboys, two very beatable teams, and yet the Commanders lost to those teams. Let's talk about the Washington Commanders offense off the 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football and off head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Tuesday afternoon. The offense on Monday night did some good things, but the team scored just 7 points, so you can't go crazy with how well the offense did. What was as frustrating as anything was the Commanders scoring no points off two first-half takeaways. Cornerback Marshawn Lattimore had an interception in the first quarter. Linebacker Bobby Wagner had an interception in the second quarter, and yet the Commanders scored no points off those takeaways, and the team in the first half committed a red zone turnover, a brutal red zone turnover. 1st and 10 for the Commanders at the Chiefs' 18 with 9:49 left in the first quarter. Receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. had a drop on a shotgun pass by quarterback Marcus Mariota, resulting in an interception. The ball went up into the air, was intercepted by edge defender Mike Dana for a very painful red zone interception that ended a good drive by the Commanders. Deebo took his eyes off the ball before actually catching the ball, and it went off his hands/face shield. This was the opening statement of Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Tuesday afternoon.
Hasn't even been 24 hours since I've seen you guys. Thought about on the plane watching it, again this morning watching it, and keep coming back to the same moment of the missed opportunities. And we missed 3 big ones in the first half. And I think last night somebody might have asked me what was the difference between the first half and the second half. And it's certainly not the same opportunities, which is exactly why you have to take advantage of them. That's the difference between going into the half tied or going into the half with the lead. Defensively, I saw some things I'm looking for. Energy, more speed. I thought, from the offensive side of starting quickly that way, that definitely has to sustain us. We've had to dig ourselves out of a hole before, and we plan on doing that again. But we have to take advantage of our opportunities. That's really the message. So got the right people to do it. And I know you guys probably have a lot of injury questions. We haven't had our final medical meeting with some guys still getting scans, et cetera. So I know we meet again tomorrow. So I'll give you a better update. I just don't have enough information to share with you tonight. So all that said, I'll get rocking with you guys and get started about the game.
All right. Now, regarding the Commanders' injuries on offense, 3 players to be mindful of coming out of the loss at the Chiefs. Quarterback Jayden Daniels, receiver Terry McLaurin, and left tackle Laramie Tunsil. Daniels on Monday night was inactive due to a right hamstring injury that he suffered in the Commanders' 44-22 loss at the Dallas Cowboys on October 19th. He previously missed 2 games due to a left knee injury. He now has missed 3 of the team's 8 games in this regular season due to injury. The most entertaining exchange of the Dan Quinn day after the game press conference on Tuesday afternoon was this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
Real quick on the injuries with Jayden, do you have a plan for him for this week?
Yeah, of course we have a plan. So, yeah, he had a good rehab session on days are screwed up on Sunday. Team's back out at practice tomorrow, and we plan on him being a part of that.
All right, I don't know if we call that Dan Quinn getting mad at John Keim, but how about snippy? That was Dan Quinn being snippy with John Keim.
Real quick on the injuries with Jayden, do you have a plan for him for this week?
Yeah, of course we have a plan. So, yeah,
Yeah, of course we have a plan. Duh. All we needed there was a duh from Dan Quinn. The Commanders need Jayden Daniels back. Duh. It just may be that he needs to put on a Superman cape and save this Commander season himself. It's not right. It's not fair, but it may be the reality. It may be that the Commanders' only realistic hope to make the playoffs this season is Jayden Daniels, JD5, putting on the Superman cape, grabbing the season by the throat and dominating as he did in his all-time great rookie season last season. Marcus Mariota has played well in Daniels' absence, but Mariota, of course, is in Daniels. Mariota for the loss at the Chiefs, by the way. Overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 69.4. That's good. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. Also, Mariota for the game had a total QBR per ESPN of 61.4. That's good. QBR is on a scale of 0 to 100. His expected points added stats, though, were not good. He, for the game per RBSDM.com, had an expected points added per play of minus 0.15 and a total EPA of minus 6.2. Commanders receivers in the loss at the Chiefs. Terry McLaurin returned from a 4-game absence caused by a quadriceps injury. It was great to have him back. He had 3 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets and playing on 47% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 89.9. Some tremendous catches in this game, but he was out of the game in the fourth quarter due to his quadriceps injury. We'll see what his status is. Deebo Samuel returned from a 1-game absence caused by a heel injury. He had 3 receptions for 11 yards on 6 targets and had 1 carry for 1 yard. He also had 2 drops/catches that could have been made but weren't, including the drop that resulted in an interception. He played on 74% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Luke McCaffrey had 3 receptions for 24 yards on 3 targets and playing on 51% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Chris Moore had no targets and playing on 43% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Jalen Lane had 1 reception for no yards on 2 targets. He also had a catch that could have been made but was not. He played on 43% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Noah Brown missed a 6th consecutive game due to groin and knee injuries. He has been on the reserve/injured list since October 15th. Also, no more Robbie Chosen, at least for now. The Commanders on Monday afternoon announced having released Chosen from the practice squad. This to make room for kicker Matthew Wright on the practice squad. He, of course, was the Commanders' kicker in this game due to Matt Gay being inactive due to a back ailment, but the Commanders on Tuesday afternoon announced having released Matthew Wright from the practice squad. Commanders tight ends in the loss at the Chiefs. Zach Ertz had 4 receptions for 16 yards on 6 targets. He had a drop. He played on 62% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. And Dan Quinn on Tuesday afternoon shed some light on the Zach Ertz 4th down reception. 4th and 6 for the Commanders at the Chiefs 40 with 1:04 left in the first quarter. Marcus Mariota had a shotgun completion to Zach Ertz, who appeared to get the first down, but the Commanders got a bad spot, and the completion via a virtual measurement was ruled to be a 5-yard completion as opposed to a 6-yard completion. And a lot of people wondered, hey, why didn't Dan Quinn challenge the spot? Well, it turns out he couldn't challenge the spot. Here was Quinn on Tuesday afternoon.
Somebody asked yesterday about on the 4th down, do you have a chance to challenge on those? And the 4th downs, you don't, just knowing that those are automatically under review. So I just, I don't know if that came up, but I did say that last night. I just wanted to make sure I hit that again.
All right, and we later on Tuesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider J.P. Finley of NBC4 and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Dan, just so I understand it, so the Ertz 4th down, you guys couldn't have challenged that spot if you wanted to?
Correct. Okay. It's automatically reviewed, JP. So on a change of possession,
gotcha.
Those are automatic. So think of it like a scoring play.
All right, so some clarity regarding the Zach Ertz 4th down reception. The Commanders did get jobbed on that spot. The team's numbers 2 and 3 tight ends on Monday night each had 1 target that resulted in a 22-yard reception. John Bates had 1 reception for 22 yards on 1 target and playing on 55% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Ben Sinnott had 1 reception for 22 yards on 1 target and playing on 21% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Colson Yankoff was inactive due to a hamstring injury that he suffered in practice this past Friday. Commanders running backs in the loss at the Chiefs. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had 9 carries for 25 yards and had no receptions on 1 target and playing on 57% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Chris Rodriguez Jr. had 1 carry for 2 yards and had no targets targets and playing on just 4% of the Commanders' offensive snaps, a total of just 2 offensive snaps. The team's best running back in this game was Jeremy McNichols. He had 1 carry for 4 yards and had 5 receptions for 64 yards on 6 targets and playing on 43% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 80.5. Remember, no Austin Eckler. He's on the reserve/injured list. But bottom line, a 3rd consecutive underwhelming performance by the Commanders' rushing offense. You look at Commanders' skill position players who got carries in this game: Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols, and Deebo Samuel. They combined for just 12 carries for just 32 yards. The Commanders have got to get the rushing offense going again. We, on Tuesday afternoon, had this exchange between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Dan, what do you think is happening with the run game the last few weeks?
Yeah, we certainly need to get it on track in the best of ways. And I wish I had a better sense to say which ones. We've got a good package, but it has to be, the runs and the play passes. Those have to really be in concert together. We hit a couple of play passes yesterday, which was nice for us to do. Terry had one inside, but we've got to find our ways, even to stick with it some when, they're hard runs to go and one goes for 1 or 0. It can be frustrating, but you just dig and you keep banging for it, and you stay into that spot. And that's, what we'll work to do, because it has to be, a bigger part of our game.
And I don't know about you, but that to me sounded like Dan Quinn saying that he thinks that offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury needs to stick with the run more. It's hard, though, to stick to the run when the run is giving like 2.8 yards per carry. And that's what the Commanders' rushing offense has been doing over these last 3 games. So the Commanders' starting offensive line in the loss at the Chiefs. So Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Chris Paul at left guard, Tyler Biadasz at center, Samuel Cosmi at right guard, Josh Conerly Jr. at right tackle. Paul, Biadasz, Cosmi, and Conerly, each guy played on 100% of the Commanders' offensive snaps, but Laramie Tunsil played on just 25% of the team's offensive snaps. He left the game due to a hamstring injury, returned to the game, but then ultimately was out of the game for good. He did not play at all in the second half. But tackle/guard Brandon Coleman was active, off having been a healthy inactive for each of the Commanders' previous 5 games. He went in at left tackle for Tunsil and played on 75% of the team's offensive snaps, and Coleman did well. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 75.1. Good for Brandon Coleman. We, on Tuesday afternoon, had this exchange between Commanders insider Tom Schad of The Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
Dan, Brandon Coleman was active yesterday for the first time since week 2, I think. What went into that decision, and how do you think he fared at left tackle in place of Laramie?
Yeah, Tom, we've been working both. It's a little bit interesting where instead of a normal swing tackle, Brandon's got experience at both left guard and left tackle, and Wiley had experience at right guard and right tackle. So we kind of went into the space of right side and left side as opposed to a swing interior guard. And so because of their experience, we thought that's a good way to go about it. We liked what we had seen from him during the practices. So that's what went into it. And then, as it goes, games happen and, you go in. So that's how it worked out.
With tackle/guard Andrew Wiley, he and guard Nick Allegretti, each guy on Monday night, did not play on any of the Commanders' offensive snaps, but did play on special teams, although each guy played on just 1 special team snap. Offensive tackle Trent Scott was a healthy inactive. Offensive tackle George Fant was a healthy inactive. Also with the offensive line. So the Commanders as a team had just 3 accepted penalties for 35 yards, but the team's lone accepted penalty on offense was by Josh Conerly. 1st and 10 for the Commanders at their 35 with 7:52 left in the fourth quarter. Conerly committed a 5-yard false start penalty. Josh Conerly in this regular season now has 8 total penalties, including 5 accepted penalties. He's tied for number 3 in the NFL in most total penalties. Not good. The NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers, is good. It will fight for you and win for you. Just recently, an $8 million jury verdict in Baltimore City Circuit Court in a case in which the NACE Law Group represented the family of a 42-year-old man who died after a simple procedure. Lead attorney Chris Nace is a big Commanders fan and big supporter of this podcast, and his firm wins trials. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group is tremendous. It is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. The Nace Law Group fights for victims of all kinds of situations, including victims of errors made during diagnosis, during surgery, or with medication, victims of injuries caused by dangerous medications or medical devices, as well as defective auto parts, victims of accidents involving cars, trucks, bikes, or motorcycles, victims of deceptive trade practices and false advertising, heck, victims of shady lawyers. If your attorney acts in bad faith, is unethical in his or her counsel, or is negligent in his or her work, you could have a claim for legal malpractice. The NACE Law Group has represented corporate clients throughout the region. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the NACE Law Group and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the NACE Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the NACE Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. More now on the Washington Commanders off the 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football and off head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Tuesday afternoon. Let's talk Commanders defense. Did the Commanders defense overall play well on Monday night? No. The Commanders allowed the Chiefs to put up 432 total net yards of offense and averaged 6.45 yards per play. The Commanders had all kinds of problems with Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. He went 25 for 34 for 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, and yes, 2 interceptions, but hit a yards per pass attempt of 8.79. He had 4 carries for 30 yards. He went nuclear in the second half, 17 for 19 for 210 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Also, the Commanders' run defense was bad. They allowed Chiefs skill position players who had carries in this game, running backs Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, and Brashard Smith, and receiver Rashee Rice, to combine for 26 carries for 118 yards and a touchdown. Also, the Commanders allowed the Chiefs to go 2 for 2 on 4th down. So no, the Commanders' defense on Monday night overall did not play well. But the Commanders' defense on Monday night did demonstrate improvement. And no, that's not saying a ton, but that is saying something, and the defense did do some good things. The Commanders generated 2 takeaways, which were 2 first-half interceptions. The Commanders had 3 sacks. The Commanders forced 2 fumbles, although the team recovered neither. And I thought that the Commanders' tackling was good, and energy was good. The play style, as defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. likes to say, was good. The Chiefs have an elite offense quarterbacked by an elite QB in Patrick Mahomes. That needs to be entered into the equation as well. Now, we in the lead up to this game talked a lot about potential changes for the Commanders defense, right? Well, we got change. Among the changes was 2 guys who had barely played on defense this season playing a good bit. Linebacker Jordan McGee started and played on 84% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Safety Tyler Owen started and played on 36% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. During the day after the game press conference of Commanders head coach Dan Quinn on Tuesday afternoon, had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
You talk about on defense energy and all that. How did you feel about the McGee, Owens, and them getting more snaps? What did you see from them? And could we see even more of them moving forward?
Yeah, I like the speed that they brought, John. I felt that. Not to say that the game was clean in that way. We had 3 explosives in the first half in terms of the passing game, but I like the speed that I felt from them. And, they've earned the right to, have some more ops in there too.
Well, Dan Quinn and Joe Witt wanted to see the defense play faster, and it on Monday night did play faster. Regarding Tyler Owens starting, we on Tuesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Zavala of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
What went into the decision of having Tyler Owens start? And I know you guys have been wanting to get Jordan McGee more time, but for Tyler specifically, kind of what went into the thinking there?
Honestly, we were trying to think about into some man-to-man options. Nikki, that was one of them. The second piece was, could we put him, down in where the action is? We felt like that's always been something with Tyler, but it started, born from some man-to-man, ideas, and then we'd expand from there. So we didn't want to overload, but start the package enough that he could go and really go execute it.
Tyler Owens did start on Monday night, but he did wind up with just the third most defensive snaps among Commanders safeties. Quan Martin played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Jeremy Reeves played on 54% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Tyler Owens started, but played on just 36% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Darnell Savage played on 26% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He had a forced fumble. Percy Butler played on just 1% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, a total of just one defensive snap, and Will Harris is on the reserve/injured list. Commanders cornerbacks in the loss at the Chiefs. A salute to Marshawn Lattimore. He played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, and he played well. He had an interception. He, for the game, had an overall grade for Pro Football Focus of 89.0. Good for him. Trey Amos played on 99% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Mikey Sainristil played on 71% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Jonathan Jones, very notably, did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, did play on special teams. Noah Igbenogany, very notably, was a healthy and active, and Antonio Hamilton Sr. did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but did play on special teams. But just 3 Commanders cornerbacks got defensive snaps in this game: Lattimore, Amos, and Sainristil. Commanders linebackers in the loss at the Chiefs. Bobby Wagner played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He had an interception. Frankie Louvu played on 88% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but the overwhelming majority of his defensive snaps in this game came as a defensive lineman. So this was how the team compensated for all of the injuries at edge defender, having Frankie Louvu serve as a defensive lineman. Jordan McGee, as mentioned, played on 84% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Nick Bellore did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but did play on special teams. Kane Medrano did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but did play on special teams. So much for him playing on defense, and Ale Cajo was a healthy and active. Commanders' edge defenders in the loss at the Chiefs. How about the rise of Jacob Martin? He played on 68% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He had 2 sacks and registering 3 quarterback hits. Martin, for this regular season now, is number 1 on the Commanders in quarterback hits with 9. Who is Jacob Martin? The Commanders this past March signed the guy as an unrestricted free agent. He reportedly signed a 1-year contract. This is his age 30 season. He came to the Commanders having played in NFL regular season games for 6 different teams. This guy is a journeyman. He was taken by the Seattle Seahawks in the 6th round of the 2018 NFL Draft out of Temple. We on Tuesday afternoon had this back and forth between Commanders insider Howard Fenrich of the Associated Press and Dan Quinn.
Hi, Dan. What have you liked the most from what you've seen from Jacob Martin, and where would you say maybe you've seen the most improvement from him?
Probably the last 2 games, Howard. When the opportunity came, I felt like he really could play and get under people. He's not the biggest defensive end, but he's got explosiveness that if he can get under a guy, he can get movement on him. And so I saw that against Dallas. I saw it against Kansas City. He's got a relentless nature about him. And so he's earned these chances and more ops to go get it. But he's always been a very consistent player. He was one of the captains for that reason of just staying consistent. But it's his pad level and his ability to get under guys with getting some speed and jumping the ball, Howard. That's what I've seen from him. And to be a good rusher, you have to beat somebody to the punch. And he's been able to show that he's been able to do that.
What about, sticking with him for a sec, what about off the field?
Yeah, the consistent nature. He and Jeremy McNichol are 2 of our most consistent teammates, ball players, their routine, their performance, how they conduct themselves. And so players like that are really important on your team. They're glue players because they just don't back off of good standards. And so I always got a lot of respect for players like that. And Jacob and Jeremy remind me of one another in that way, on opposite sides of the ball, but bringing some of those same things.
All right. Also with Commanders edge defenders in the loss at the Chiefs, Jalen Holmes played on 33% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Von Miller played on 23% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Preston Smith played on 12% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. And the team has 4 notable edge defenders on the reserve/injured list in Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise Jr., Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and Drake Jackson. And Commanders' interior defensive linemen in the loss at the Chiefs, Daron Payne played on 65% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Javon Kinlaw played on 58% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. He, during the game, dealt with a shoulder injury, so we'll have to see how he's doing. Eddie Goldman played on 32% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Sheldon Day played on 25% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. The Commanders on Monday afternoon announced having elevated Day from the practice squad for this game. And Johnny Newton had a good game. He played on 25% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but he had a sack in registering 2 quarterback hits and had a forced fumble. He did also commit a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty on his sack of Patrick Mahomes. But Newton for the game had an overall grade for Pro Football Focus of 72.9. Nova Fireplace and Stove. It is Northern Virginia's go-to expert for fireplaces. So transform the look and feel of your home and increase its value by visiting Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or by visiting novafireplaceandstove.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Come in and see Nova Fireplace and Stove's stunning displays, including custom fireplace glass doors and stone refacing options that can completely transform the look of your fireplace. From sleek and modern to rustic and cozy, Nova Fireplace and Stove has something for every style. And here's what else Nova Fireplace and Stove offers: gas fireplace service and repair, chimney cleaning and brickwork repair, generator installation, panel replacements, and water heater repairs, smoke detectors, security lights, and more. Nova Fireplace and Stove is a family-owned, fully licensed and insured company with over-the-top credentials, gas and electrical master's licenses, a Class A contractor's license, and a long list of 5-star reviews to back all of this up. Every job includes a free in-home estimate, and for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast, Nova Fireplace and Stove is offering $25 off any service. Just mention this ad. Nova Fireplace and Stove only works in Northern Virginia and thus knows the homes, the codes, and the people. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed. That's Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or novafireplaceandstove.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Nova Fireplace and Stove, where comfort meets craftsmanship, and your fireplace becomes the heart of your home. Well, it has been a mixed month of October when it comes to Washington at Dallas. The Commanders lost at the Cowboys 44-22 on October 19th. The Wizards won at the Mavericks 117-107 this past Friday night, October 24th. And the Capitals lost at the Stars 1-0 on Tuesday night. The Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season now are 6-4-0. 2 consecutive regulation losses, first losing streak for the Caps in this regular season. This was a goaltending battle on Tuesday night. The Caps starting goaltender was Logan Thompson. He stopped 18 of the 19 shots on goal that he faced, and the one goal that he gave up was a power play goal. The Caps went 3 for 4 on the penalty kill. Thompson, per natural stat trick, stopped all 7 of the high-danger shots on goal that he faced. He has been so good so far this season, but Stars goaltender Jake Ottinger, he pitched a shutout. He stopped all 24 of the shots on goal that he faced. But the Caps did a lot of good things. They lost 1-0 despite winning the puck possession battle. They had 24 shots on goal to the Stars' 19, and per natural stat trick had 49 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Stars' 29. The Caps did go 0 for 3 on the power play. Here was Caps head coach Spencer Carberry during his post-game session with reporters late night on Tuesday night, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange with Caps insider Bailey Johnson of the Washington Post.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we did out there for majority of the game, especially the second and third period. I thought we did a lot of good things, control play, had majority of the looks, just didn't convert on them tonight. So you can't be upset or disappointed with the process. The process was good tonight. We just weren't able to finish.
How do you build on this one heading into your next game?
I think just a lot of the good 5-on-5 things we did. Special teams still an issue for our group, power play, penalty kill, but 5-on-5 thought we did a lot of really good things, so we'll build on those things. And, I mean, you do those things more times than not, you're probably going to get 2 points in games. So that's what we'll focus on as we get back to work.
And making the Caps' performance on Tuesday night even more impressive was that they were without two key players. The center Dylan Strome did not play due to a lower body injury that he suffered in the Caps' 7-1 loss to the Ottawa Senators at Capital One Arena this past Saturday night. And defenseman Rasmus Sandin is on injured reserve due to an upper body injury. The Caps' healthy scratches were defenseman Dylan McElrath and winger Sonny Milano. By the way, Ethan Frank is back. The Caps on Monday morning announced having recalled Frank from their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. Next up for the Caps are two games this weekend. Home to the New York Islanders Friday night at 7 and at the Buffalo Sabres Saturday night at 7. So our rebuilding and tanking Washington Wizards had what you could consider was a choke job of a loss on Tuesday night, but the Wizards are showing signs of growth so far in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season, in which they now are 1-3, a 139-134 overtime loss to the Philadelphia 76ers at Capital One Arena on Tuesday night. The Wizards blew a 19-point third-quarter lead and a 17-point fourth-quarter lead. The Wizards lost the fourth quarter 32-16 and then lost the overtime 13-8. The Wizards could not stop Tyrese Maxey. He in the fourth quarter scored 14 of the 76ers' 32 points. He in overtime scored 9 of the 76ers' 13 points. He for the game in 47 minutes 26 seconds as a starter went 3 for 9 on threes, 8 for 16 on twos, and 14 for 16 on free throws. He finished with 39 points, 10 assists versus 4 turnovers, and 3 rebounds. If you care about wins and losses with our Wizards, this was a painful loss. But if you're like me, and you're rooting for the Wizards to demonstrate growth, but also tank, then this actually was the perfect loss. Two key young players for the Wizards came up big in this game, Alex Sarr and Keyshawn George. Sarr in 34-05 as a starter went 3 for 7 on threes, 10 for 16 on twos, and 2 for 2 on free throws. He finished with 31 points, 11 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, 5 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. He did commit 5 turnovers. And Keyshawn George, he in 40-11 as a starter, went 4 for 7 on threes and finished with 20 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists versus 1 turnover and 2 steals. He did go just 4 for 10 on twos and 0 for 2 on free throws and did have a team worst plus-minus rating of minus 21. And hurting the Wizards down the stretch as they collapsed were 2 veterans as opposed to 2 young players. C.J. McCollum and Chris Middleton, they over the fourth quarter and overtime went a combined 2 for 12 from the field, 1 for 3 on threes and 1 for 9 on twos. This to me was an encouraging loss for the Wizards to a good Sixers team. The Sixers now are 4-0. Here was Wizards head coach Brian Keefe during his postgame press conference on Tuesday night.
First of all, I think for us, like being in these type of games, learning in these types of situations, these are the things that we can put in the bank, that we can look at, we can get better at. End of game situations are great, but the thing that I really thought was great about this game is the way we played. We're starting to grow as a team. You can see us defensively disrupting things, and then our ball movement, 33 assists today, just sharing it. Everybody was just moving the ball. It's really hard to guard. They made a couple runs a couple times during the games, and we kept answering back. And then they made obviously a little bit of one late, but some great situational stuff that our team can take and we can put in the bank and we can learn from. So never want to lose. That always hurts. Our guys are competitors. I'm a competitor. But there's things that we really took from this game that we can use to keep going forward. And then we can look at some of these situational things. We'll get better and better.
Yeah, you could tell that Brian Keefe, you could tell that our guy Chief Keefe found this to be an encouraging loss for his team. Next up for the Wizards at the Oklahoma City Thunder, Thursday night at 8. We move now to college football. Hard to ignore how well Curt Cignetti is doing as Indiana head coach since leaving his job as James Madison head coach in November 2023. But, it's not like JMU has struggled since Cignetti left. JMU in December 2023 announced the hiring of Bob Chesney as head coach. He had spent the previous 6 seasons as the head coach for Holy Cross. JMU in the 2024 season went 9-4 overall, including 4-4 in the Sun Belt Conference. And JMU now in the 2025 season has won 6 consecutive games and is 7-1 overall, including 5-0 in the Sun Belt Conference. A 52-20 win at Texas State on Tuesday night. Total domination by the Dukes. JMU ran just 60 offensive plays to Texas State's 75 and yet had 511 total net yards of offense to Texas State's 352 and a yards per play of 8.52 to Texas State's 4.69. JMU quarterback Alonzo Barnett III, he had a third consecutive impressive game as he accounted for 5 touchdowns. Barnett went 12 for 18 for 264 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. He took 1 sack, which was for a mere 4-yard loss. He had 9 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown when you take out the sack that he took. He quarterbacked the Duke's offense that went 6 for 11 on third downs. He, for the game, had a total QBR per ESPN of 94.1. Alonzo Barnett III had been having an iffy season, but he lately has been great. He, over JMU's last 3 games, has accounted for 14 touchdowns. Next up for James Madison at Marshall on Saturday, November 8th at noon. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Thursday show, episode 1188, will provide you with more on the Washington Commanders as they on Wednesday are beginning their practice week for their game against the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this Sunday night at 8:20. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Real quick on the injuries with Jayden, do you have a plan for him for this week?
Yeah, of course we have a plan. So, yeah,